Morning sunlight enters the kitchen as Alice prepares breakfast for her son Kriss. Kriss walks into the kitchen rubbing his sleepy eyes. Alice places a warm toast plate on the small dining table. Kriss sits on the chair and looks out the front window. Soft scratching sounds suddenly come from the front door. Kriss turns his head and listens carefully to the strange sound. Alice walks slowly toward the front door to check. She opens the door slightly and looks outside. A tiny brown puppy sits quietly on the porch. Kriss steps closer and watches the little puppy with curiosity. The puppy moves its tail slowly and looks a bit nervous. Alice kneels down and gently calls the puppy closer. The puppy slowly walks toward Alice and sniffs her hand. Kriss smiles brightly as the puppy becomes calmer. Alice carefully lifts the small puppy into her arms. Alice places the small puppy gently on the kitchen floor. Kriss quickly brings a small bowl from the cabinet. Alice pours fresh water into the bowl for the puppy. The puppy walks slowly toward the bowl. Kriss kneels down and carefully pushes the bowl closer. The puppy lowers its head and drinks the water. Alice leans against the counter and watches quietly. Kriss softly pets the puppy's head. The puppy wags its tail and walks around the kitchen. Kriss laughs quietly as the puppy follows him. Alice checks the puppy's neck again for a name tag. The puppy looks toward the front door curiously. Kriss walks to the window and looks outside. Alice picks up the puppy and walks toward the door. Both step outside to start looking for the puppy's owner. Alice walks slowly down the quiet street with the puppy. Kriss walks beside her and looks around the neighborhood. The puppy rests calmly in Alice's arms. Kriss points toward a small house across the street. Alice walks to the gate of the house and stops. A neighbor opens the door and looks outside. Alice politely asks if the puppy belongs to them. The neighbor shakes their head and smiles kindly. Kriss gently pets the puppy while they talk. Alice thanks the neighbor and walks back to the sidewalk. They continue walking along the peaceful street. The puppy lifts its head and looks around curiously. Kriss notices a small park at the end of the street. Alice walks toward the park with Kriss beside her. They arrive near the park and look around for the owner. Alice and Kriss walk slowly along the path inside the small park. The puppy looks around while resting in Alice's arms. Kriss notices a colorful poster on a park board. He walks closer to read the poster carefully. The poster shows a picture of a small brown puppy. Kriss quickly calls Alice to come see it. Alice walks over and reads the poster. The poster says a puppy named Coco is missing. Alice looks down at the puppy in her arms. The puppy suddenly barks softly. A young girl sitting on a nearby bench hears the bark. She quickly stands and looks toward them. The girl walks closer and looks at the puppy. Her eyes widen as she recognizes the puppy. She happily calls out the puppy's name.